Cool.
Okay. There's a whole bunch of different kinds of sounds.
Yeah. So in case you guys, didn't figure that out by now, this is a video about drive. In the broadest sense of the word.
Yeah, because that was a lot of broad tones there.
There
but
was
it
a
was
lot
all
of different
distortion.
sounds.
Right?
Yeah. So we get a lot of questions, both through support and our Facebook channel and everything.
Yeah.
About, not only how do our drives sound, but also about drives in general. What's the difference between overdrive and distortion? How do I use a fuzz?
Okay.
Is there any place for, how do I set up like a metal distortion? All these different things. So we figured, we'd spend some time and kind of address some of all these different questions that people have.
Yeah, okay.
And I think maybe the first thing, and we actually kind of went through that already, is just kind of discussing. So you could argue there are like 5 or 6 different types of drives.
Right.
There is like boosters, clean boosters.
Yeah.
There are fuzzes. There are overdrives, distortions, and then there's like metal distortion. So I think that's 5. In your experience, what's the difference between these different kinds of?
Well, just from a technical perspective, I think generally boosters. Let's start with boosters.
Yeah.
So something like the Spark here, or you got the Mini Spark over here.
Yeah.
Certainly with the Mini Spark, it's adding clean gain.
Yeah.
So what it's going to do is it's essentially kicking the front end of your amp harder with more level coming out of your guitar. But there's no overdrive added to the circuit. If there's any added overdrive, what's happening is that increased level going into the amplifier is distorting the amp.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So something like... we're essentially going from a clean sound to a much louder, slightly overdriven sound. Because what's happening is this is kicking the front end of the amp really hard, and the front end of the amp's going, and it's kind of collapsing into overdrive.
Yeah. So you're not really hearing the distortion from the pedal. It's the amp doing the distortion. The pedal is just helping the amp do that.
Totally. And that can be a really pleasing thing in some amps and maybe not so much in others. It just depends on the particular amp you have. Also, you can set it lower so you're just getting anywhere from a slight volume bump to out and out distortion from the amplifier.
And I guess it also depends on the amp because, a lot of Marshall amps are kind of designed to start overdriving once you hit them harder.
Yeah.
Whereas certain amps, many Fender amps, for example, if you don't set them too hot, they'll just get louder. So depending on where you put a buffer in your signal chain, sorry, not a buffer, depending on where you put a booster in your signal chain, it's either going to make the signal louder or it's going to make it more distorted.
Absolutely.
Depending on the amp and where you place it.
Depending on the amp and where you place it.
Yeah.
And if you run it in front of other pedals, especially overdrives, fuzzes, anything like that, what you're going to do is just saturate the front end of those pedals.
Yeah.
Right? So if you've got an overdrive on, you run a boost into that overdrive, you're essentially kicking the front end of that overdrive pedal, and the overdrive pedal is then kind of doing the same thing that we're saying.
Can we try that out?
Yeah, sure.
So we have a rush booster, which is essentially sort of the same, a clean boost.
Okay.
So we can hit the El Cambo.
This is an overdrive pedal.
Yeah, so this is an overdrive pedal, so we'll just start with this.
Okay. So you might get a little bit of a volume bump when you turn on the boost, but because this guy's already distorted, you're not getting a huge volume bump, right? Whereas if we've got the El Cambo on, and then I hit the spark boost after it, now I'm able to double the volume going into the amp because this is boosting after the after the overdrive.
So you can use a booster to either get more distortion, or you can use it if you want to raise the level of solos. For example, you'd place that after whatever kind of drive you use to play your solos with. You'll just kick that in and raise the level so you can be heard over the band.
So it just depends what sounds best.
Yeah.
The spark boost that you have over here, this one's a little more full feature than the little guy. This one's got some tone controls on it.
Yeah, tone controls and a little bit of gain.
A little bit of gain?
Yeah, very tiny amount, but just a little bit to warm it up.
Yeah, so no hard and fast rules. You can break the rules a little bit.
Yeah.
But essentially, boosters, clean gain without overdrive.
Yeah.
And they're designed to give you some volume, possibly some simple tone controls to kind of kick the front end of your amp.
Do you use boosters in your personal boards, or are you more into...
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, depends on the rig and what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
On the gig, occasionally I'm just like, for this one certain part in a song, I need to get louder for a second, and then I'll throw a boost on my board because I know, for a certain gig I need that.
You need that, yeah.
Yeah, to make a lick jump out or something, but I don't want to add overdrive.
Yeah.
So that's when I'll do it.
Playing a lot of metal, that a lot of metal guys, they prefer to use amp distortion. Mm-hmm. But the problem is that a lot of amps, especially nowadays, most amps have, or a lot of metal amps have plenty of distortion. But in the 80s and early 90s, you'd be using like Marshall JCM 800s.
Right.
And if you played like really aggressive metal, they had drive but not enough. And a lot of metal guys would use a booster to kind of push the amp because they didn't want to add extra. They didn't want to change the sound of the amp. They just wanted to have the amp basically, add a little bit more distortion, and you'd use the booster for that.
And let's face it, the original hot pickups, Super Distortions, DiMarzio X2Ns, things like
EMGs,
that. Yeah, they were designed to be hot and kick the front end of the amp, kind of to do a similar thing, The problem with doing it with a pickup is that you kind of change the sound of the pickup, or the hotter you wind it, they can turn into a bit of a mid-range bomb, and you're sort of changing the sound. So to get it out of a booster pedal is actually sort of a cleaner way to do it, I think. And so there's another family that I can think of that we actually didn't mention, the 5 at the top that you brought up. But there's also treble boosters.
Oh, yeah.
Which were designed to boost a certain frequency, right?
Yeah.
And that was kind of the original. The great thing about a treble booster, when we think about the tones of like early Judas Priest, that kind of early kind of proto-metal stuff.
Yeah. And Brian May, for that matter. That's another.
Absolutely. He was a great example. And so he was able to turn up the normal channel on an AC30, which would normally be kind of a little bit of a dark affair that sounded like this, able to dime that thing. But you hit that with a treble booster pedal, which is just boosting the top, those real searing top end frequencies, and all of a sudden this magic drive comes out, and it's not too bloated in the low end because you're just boosting the treble, right? So really cool.
Yeah.
So that's boosters.
Yeah. So and the thing with boosters, as we already discussed, generally they're designed to be fairly neutral sounding,
right,
or clean sounding. So it's not like it makes a bigger difference what amp you play and what other drives you use it with than the pedal by itself. Which gets us into overdrives.
So overdrives now can also boost if you crank up the output on them real high, but they've all got generally some sort of drive control on them, and that adds an overdrive circuit of some sort. And it's generally, if it's called an overdrive, it's what I call a soft clipping type of circuit generally, right? So what's that? I mean, we can even maybe find a photo for this video where you could post a
you can see how the
soft clipping looks.
How the soft clipping looks. We'll do that. By magic, it'll be right here.
Yeah, cool.
So, and I think overdrives, to begin with, when the first ones were kind of designed, was the fact that to get a lot of the amps back in those days, that were basically, a lot of them were designed to play clean.
Yeah.
To distort, you had to turn them up really, really loud.
Right.
So having an overdrive that basically simulates the sound of a tube amp that's just being pushed to that perfect degree is a really convenient and cool thing.
Definitely.
So one way of using an overdrive is just basically having like a totally clean amp, and then just kicking in your overdrive to get your basic drive needs, so to speak.
Sure.
And like a classic example of that would be Steve Ray Vaughan.
Yeah.
Using a tube screamer. Yeah. Which we have our own kind of version of that here.
Yeah.
The El Cambo.
Now, if you can see the way that I've got it set up, I made a YouTube video a little while ago on how I like to use tube screamers, and this is essentially it, where I'm cranking the output gain. Because I do kind of want to use it almost like a boost. They will boost. I mean, if you turn the drive control all the way down on a pedal like this and crank the output all the way up, it's kind of acting like a booster, but kind of a colored booster. Yeah. Even if the overdrive circuit's all the way off, it's still doing a little something, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So. So when I think of overdrives, it's got kind of a soft sort of like, you know, they were originally meant to simulate the sound of a tube amp that's cranked up, but an older tube amp back in the day that didn't have a ton of front end gain and a ton of clipping going on. It was just like everything in the amp was kind of saturating and being driven a little bit to its limit, and it had a kind of a soft, pleasing kind of tone, not too hard edge. So. You know, there's a warmth to it that's really nice, and this pedal sounds great, by the way. I think it sounds really good. So I don't know. Do you want to turn the knobs while I play or something?
Yeah, we can do that.
And it even sounds kind of good when I play like chords.
Bigger chords.
Yeah, bigger chords. Like you get away with it with Overdrive, and it's cool. You know?
But I think also, you know, I think a lot of people ask, so I mean, we have 4 different overdrives here, and you know, if you start looking at, you know, on different pedal dealers' websites, you will find literally hundreds. So what's the difference between all of them? And I think that, you know, Tube Screamer and versions of the Tube Screamer is a very specific kind of sound.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's soft clipping, but it has a certain nasal, mid-range.
Through the mids, right? Yeah.
Which is great for cutting through, and it works great with certain amps. I mean, it works great with this amp, but I even find that a lot of times Tube Screamers work even better with Fender-style amps because they're typically a little bit scooped in the mid-range.
Yeah, the basic tone in them is kind of scooped.
So once you hit that, you kind of bring up a little bit better of what you lost on the amp.
Yeah.
And also, they have a tendency to cut the lows quite a bit. You lose a little bit of, even if you just do this, if we kind of compare.
And now you've also got the output turned down.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the unity gain.
Yeah, it's definitely lops up. You can hear it kind of below 100 hertz. They just kind of thin out, right? Yeah. Or maybe even higher than that.
Yeah, which is, I mean, that's cool for certain things.
It certainly helps to keep a dirty amp tight.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
And which is why, you know, you'll see guys who are into like the blues sounds use them, but you'll also see a lot of hard rock and metal guys use them to push an amp that's already distorting.
Yeah.
Just to kind of tighten it up, give it a little bit more gain, but also tighten up the low end so it doesn't get all boomy and uncontrollable.
Yeah, we can actually show that really quick. I'll tell you what, just really on the fly here, I'm gonna plug into the high gain input of this amp, and it's probably gonna be substantially louder, so you might just wanna check the levels and going into the recorder to make sure it's not clipping. That sounds good.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Hello.
Hello. It's loud in here, but it sounds great. Yeah, man. Okay, so that's just the amp, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, wow, that sounds really good.
That's a good amp.
Nice, healthy old Marshall.
Yeah.
So, okay, and then so now turning on the pedal, let's boost into it, and we'll see how we can get heavier. So there's that thing where we're actually adding distortion, but it's tightening the amp at the same time, and that's kind of magical. Amp sounds almost more flubby on its own with less distortion.
And it's because it's cutting that low end.
It's cutting the low end, so it's making the guitar just cut like a knife and keep it tight while adding gain.
And everybody in development is going like, what the?
It's okay.
Yeah.
This is what we're here for. We're here to rock, man.
It's all about the rock and roll.
All right, man, that sounds great. What a good tone. Now I don't want to put the cable back in the low gain input. We purposely hooked up the amp in the low gain input to sort of show off the pedals, but that sounds so good. Okay, I'll do it. That was it. That's a great basic look, though, I think, at why this type of pedal works great for some of the metal guys.
Yeah.
You know, sort of old school metal.
Yeah.
That was the El Cambo, right?
Yeah. So
Very cool.
If we take the El Cambo as like one example of overdrive, and then we compare it to the MojoMojo, which we kind of designed to be the opposite of a tube screamer type overdrive, which is way more low end. We don't cut that. Also, tube screamers tend to compress the signal a little bit more. This one doesn't do that. And it's just, overall, it's just a totally different type of sound. So if we kind of A-B them.
Okay.
So here's the...
Yeah, it's real full in the lows, right? So... Yeah, this is much more a full range sound, right? What's the switch do on this guy?
It's actually cutting a little bit of the lows.
Oh, okay.
Because it can get, I mean, especially with humbuckers, it can get a little bit...
A bit much.
Yeah.
Okay, so just doing that, I can
just
drop the...
tightens it up a little bit.
I think for humbuckers that could be good, yeah. This has maybe more in common with kind of... It's actually veering a little bit more into hard clipping territory. It's not, right? But it's a little gainier, a little more aggressive.
But you can also back it down a bit if you want to.
Sure.
You know, compare it a little bit more. Just you know, if you have.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Yeah. It's just a little bit more full range, a little less of that forward mid thing.
Yeah, and also in general, this one doesn't try to impose its own tone as much on the sound as this one. If you back this, you know, if you set this like, kind of like this.
Right.
Whereas if you do this.
Yeah,
you'll still notice it's doing something quite dramatic on the EQ.
For sure. These could be very complementary, actually. If you're running this maybe for like a rhythm gain, maybe you could use them together.
Yeah.
I don't know, like this boosting into this. Yeah. Let's see what that sounds like. Sure. You could use that for a, you know, kind of classic rock or maybe you know, Americana or something kind of rootsy. You know, these two could be a good combo actually.
Which actually reminds me of another thing, which is, you know, in general I find there's like, it's almost like there's two religions when it comes to drives, and that is the guys who basically switch between drives, and then the guys who like to stack them. Right. So I don't know if you can talk. Do you prefer one or the other, or?
I don't do a lot of stacking, but I know certain people, you know, it seems like the stacking of overdrives is something that people do when they generally use a clean amp.
Yeah.
And then they use a rhythm drive and then want to stack something else into it for leads and stuff like that, which is kind of what I just described. And that's a totally valid way of doing things. I tend to use amp distortion.
Yeah.
So I play clean, and then I'll add, sometimes on my clean channel, I'll add a drive of some sort for sort of augmented, different drive sound than what my amp will give me.
Yeah.
But really, most of the time, I'm getting distortion out of the second or third channel of my signature amplifier. And then what I do is sometimes I'll augment that distortion by boosting it in the front end with a mid booster, a treble booster, an overdrive of some sort or something.
Just to get a little bit of an extra something.
Yeah, but the pedal stacking thing is totally valid. It's just a different,
a different way of doing doing things. Yeah.
Yeah, no two guitar rigs are the same. It's like, guitar players, and guitar rigs are like snowflakes, right? They're like, yeah, right, no two are the same, or four-leaf clovers or whatever.
But I think it's a good point with the. I come from like getting most of my distortion from amps as well, so I'm a little bit in the same kind of ballpark as you.
Yeah.
But I think that a lot of guys who have clean amps and use pedals for their gain, they would actually use like one pedal to be almost work as their gain channel on the amp.
Yes.
And then, like you said, on your signature amp, you'll have like your channel 2 or 3, and that would be like your core drive sound. And then sometimes you would actually stack that with an overdrive or a treble booster or a mid booster or something to get a little bit of extra. And that would actually be the equivalent of, say, having this be your drive amp, your core amp sound, and then you stack that with something else to get, whatever kind of extra thing you need.
That's absolutely it. I mean, kind of when I was on the, the high gain input on the JMP over there, and that kind of drive, that would be my rhythm drive, and then boosting with something like this. That's kind of the way I do it, actually.
Yeah.
Maybe, that's just sort of how I play.
Yeah.
But that's not really, for a lot of people, it's not really reality, I think, because they got to do smaller gigs. They got to have smaller amplifiers, and they need a single channel amp. Maybe it's just got a great clean sound, and then they're getting their drive out of pedals, which is why you guys make so many of these things.
Yeah, and the fun thing about the pedal thing, I find, is also that if you have a good clean amp as a pedal platform, you can get so many different tones. I mean, just going through these guys here, like, the 4 different overdrives.
Yeah. We've only hit the first 2. So
there's like, there's the guy we already heard, the Cambo.
Right.
And then switching to this one.
Real full.
And then we have the Cinders, which is also full, but a little bit more loose sounding, I find.
It's almost like got a bit of a fuzz quality going on. That's a really cool sounding pedal. Yeah, I like this a lot. It's just fun to play. It's all fat and grindy. That's really cool.
And then the last one of these is actually a real tube pedal. So there's a 12AXE 7 inside.
The Tube Pilot. Also nice. Wow, that's cool. This one's got a nice singing tone. This could sound great boosting into a dirty sound as well.
Yeah.
Right? We'll have to try that and see what that sounds like. But it sounds really good. So do you want to go really quickly through all 4 of those again?
Yeah.
1 second. Cool. So that's a great, cross section of overdrives. All soft clipping kind of pedals.
Yeah, but very different.
All different. Yeah. But so it just goes to show, not all overdrives are created equal. But that is kind of a good cross section of overdrive family, I think. Yeah. So should we talk about hard clipping pedals now?
Yeah, let's do that.
Sort of distortion.
Yeah.
And you sort of made a distinction between metal distortion and maybe more classic sounding distortion.
Yeah.
So, but
let's start with the more regular.
Okay.
So I think this guy would be a good place to start.
Okay. The dark matter.
Yeah.
Okay.
And to be honest, this one tries to kind of give you the sound that you got on the Marshall when you plugged into like the
Kind of sounds like classic. awesome. Okay, sorry. I'm a Judas Priest on. Yeah, no, that's what I think of. I think like classic hard rock or metal when But there's some options on there for tone shaping, right?
Yeah, so these are both active EQs. So on a, basically, if you want to get a little bit into that, there's two basic ways of doing EQs on drive pedals.
Okay.
And like the most classic one is the one you'll find on, say, these two pedals here.
Okay.
Typically, there's just one knob called a tone, which is usually a high cut, which basically means that they just remove high end. So cranked all the way up, you get...
Yeah.
You basically, there's no attenuation of the high end frequencies.
Okay.
And as you move them down, you cut high end.
Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting point. I mean, so when you see tone on a pedal, it generally should be labeled high cut.
Yeah.
Almost,
yeah.
right? Okay. Yeah.
On some of these guys, so the MojoMojo and Dark Matter as examples, these are active EQs, so that means that they can both boost and attenuate. And we have separate ones for the highs and the lows. So if we set them in the middle, and there's actually a little indent here, you kind of feel that they snap to this point here.
Center detent.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're fairly neutral sounding, and then we can try to basically boost the bass, cut the bass, boost the high end, cut the high end.
Okay.
So if you try playing.
So you can get a significant bass boost or cut.
Yeah, and the same thing goes for this one.
Okay.
So it gives you a little bit more flexibility in terms of matching the, matching the pedal and whatever tone you want and you hear in your head, and also, it's so dependent on what guitar you play, what kind of amp you play.
Yeah.
Marshalls in general have a fairly mid-range heavy sound.
Yeah.
And rolls off the high end a lot. If you play through more like a Fender Twin or something, you might want to cut the highs a little bit more because they tend to be a little bit more.
Well, and you're mentioning the mids too, which this actually has this voice switch, right?
Yeah.
And I think that cuts mids, right?
Yeah.
So maybe if you feel like the tone is too mid-heavy, or maybe you want to get more of a kind of like, I don't know, like a little bit heavier heavy metal sound out of it or something. So let's check that out. So a little fuller through the mids or a little bit of a mid cut.
Exactly.
Kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool.
And then compared to this guy, the Grand Mage over here is a little bit more, kind of like the difference between those two, where this is a little bit more loose and fuzzy compared to the MojoMojo. It's the kind of the same thing going on here.
Also, it's got a little bit of looser sort of, okay, let's check it out. Yeah, this sounds like it's almost veering into fuzz tone territory to me, which is cool. This could be a great pedal for folks that maybe are like, well, I don't really get fuzz, but I like distortion.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is a lot of, if a fuzz is too esoteric or kind of out there, sometimes it turns off some guitar players. But this sounds like a good, good
you
bridge.
Just get a little bit of extra hair on the notes or something.
Yeah, it's cool. Writing a song.
Sounds good.
But yeah, it sounds like 90s to me, or alternative rock, or something, this pedal, I don't know, you could write riffs all day long with that. It's cool. So one thing, just before we move on to even more distortion stuff, and we could put this graphic up on the screen, the harder clipped what that looks like is completely different than the soft clip, and so we should put up a graphic of that.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah, and you can see what hard clipping or distortion pedals actually, sort of look like on a scope or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, it's a different. The top end of the waveform is super.
It's basically just cut off.
Cut right off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at like the clean signal, you'd get like this nice wavy thing.
Right.
And then once you go into like overdrives, that'd be like somebody just cut the top off.
Yeah.
And then going to this, you get even more.
Shaved it off. Yeah. More aggressive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So.
And then we get into the crazy stuff over there.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I like the sound of that. Let's get into the crazy stuff.
Yeah. So we have two different, metal style pedals.
Okay.
Fangs is more, it's more like a Swiss Army knife of different metal tones, from very scooped to more natural sounding, but all with a lot of gain.
Okay.
So we can try that one first.
Okay. Oh, I screwed up. That's cool.
Yeah.
It's like a razor, this pedal.
Yeah.
Like it's got a real aggressive edge to it. It's cool.
Yeah, and one of the things you really want to do with metal distortion is, even though you want a lot of low end, it has to be tight, because all these palm muting things.
Oh yeah, you want it to be tight.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So, and it's got a kind of a mid-cut switch too, right? This one? Yeah. Oh, so I had it in the cut position.
Yeah.
Okay. I see,
So
three-way.
there's three ways. So there's mid-cut, more neutral, and then more mid-range.
So for the more mids, that could be useful if you really want to It's almost like a wah stuck on, right? Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm not sure we'll sell that to Slash any day soon.
It's got a really cool aggressive thing going on, though. That's fun. Yeah, I like that. It's a unique sound. It doesn't sound like
it's not your polite, nice kind of distortion.
But it's cool.
Yeah,
I could definitely hear a use for that. Okay, so
and then the last guy is totally crazy. So this is a very specific pedal that there's a bunch of Swedish death metal bands. All recording in the same studio. And they would use this very particular sound, which is an old bus pedal that they don't make anymore.
Oh, okay.
And they would plug that directly into the power amp of like a Marshall. So if you wanted to use it perfectly right, you do that. It will still sound fine. Mm-hmm. Or fine might be the wrong word. It'll still sound the way it's supposed to sound, plugged into the input of the preamp. But it's actually like, if you really want to get that tone, that's what you do.
Interesting.
And it's a very unique sound.
Okay, aren't you interested to know what it sounds like? Okay, so
let's try it out.
All right. I don't know how to play Swedish death metal, but
first of all, you got a guitar. You got to get a guitar tuned down to B or something like that.
Right.
That's step one.
So I'm not going to have that. So. But I can find beauty in just about any sound. There's a song in there somewhere I know that I could write, I think. But that thing's all about the mid-range.
It is.
Yeah, it's interesting. Would be interesting to hear into the power amp, like you say, see what that sounds like. But wow, that is a plethora of different drives, right?
And we haven't even discussed the first two ones yet.
So this is fuzz.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is actually the first kind of drive.
The original drive.
The original drive. And fuzz is such a. It's almost like it's a topic on its own.
I agree. Yeah.
I know people who absolutely hate fuzz and don't know how to use it in a way that they makes sense for them. And then there are other guys who can pretty much play an entire gig with a fuzz pedal on and get all their sounds just through that one pedal.
Yeah.
From like great cleans. Yeah. Over like slightly overdriven to like super saturated leads.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Do you use them a lot? Or?
Fuzz? Yeah, I mean, I love fuzz. Certainly for a different type of lead sound, something interesting. I mean, the interesting thing about fuzz is it could be Billy Corgan or it can be David Gilmore. Yeah. It's kind of all over the map, or it could be Jimi Hendrix, obviously. Yeah. So it's all over the map, and you can use it to play so many different kinds of music. Yep. And I mean, even I can remember seeing. Oh my God, I'm forgetting his name now. YouTube producer.
David Lanois?
Yeah, Daniel Lanois. Sorry, Daniel Lanois. I remember seeing him play his music. He's a really interesting guitar player and musician. Yeah. And he was playing using, I think, an AC30 and an old Les Paul, and he plays with his fingers a lot and some kind of fuzz tone. And he had an amazing style, amazing guitar tone, but he would hit the fuzz in the weirdest places. Middle of a verse to accentuate a lick or something. Yeah. And it's kind of mellow. Yeah. And then he hits the fuzz and this like crazy, really interesting sound. Like not blowing up or anything like that. Just like, whoa, this riff came out of nowhere. Yeah. And then he'd go back and keep singing and playing. Yeah. They're a really interesting pedal that you don't have to think of it as any one kind of specific thing, I don't think, And they can do interesting things too, rolling down the volume on your guitar. And kind of using the tone controls and volume on your guitar to get different sounds. We should try it and see what we got with these.
So, 2 fuzzes over here. One is in the family of the Fuzzface, which for people going like, so what's that kind of sound? Well, that would be your Hendrixy, typically your Hendrixy type of fuzz. Right. And this is a silicon one. So in Hendrix terms, that would be later Hendrix, your Band of Gypsies, Electric Ladyland kind of thing. Right. So let's hear that one.
Okay.
Fun. Cool. Yeah. One of the things I find, especially if you want to cop those kind of Hendrixy sounds, is that most times you'd be playing into a Marshall that was already cranked. Right. So I actually find that a lot of times, if you do something like this, let's see here, if you use an overdrive to kind of simulate the sound, if you play into a clean amp, and you use an overdrive to kind of simulate the sound of a Marshall that's like,
driving. Yeah, sure.
You get that kind of spotty, kind of cool Hendrixy thing. Yeah.
I always like when fuzzes do that. Yeah. When you hear the note going up and the other one going down. Yeah. When you do a double stop. Really cool. Cool. Kind of the more brutal the fuzz, the more it does it. Love that.
And if you hear the difference between with and without the overdrive.
Yeah. It's way more fun with the overdrive. Yeah, because you're getting a little fatter layer of, the fuzzes can sound kind of thin and stuff, I guess, going straight into a clean, depending on the fuzz, right?
Of course,
Big Muff's a bit of a different animal or that type of fuzz, right? So, but yeah, this is really fun. Lots of mids, really classic sounding.
Yeah.
So what's the next one sound like?
Yeah, so the honeypot is more in that kind of big muff.
Okay. A little less, it's like a little more of a full range thing, right?
Yeah.
Pushing, and I bet you could sweep the tone pot and just find like the magic somewhere, right?
It's just walls of sound.
Really fun. Yeah, it's cool. I mean, yeah, like things like this, they just make me want to write riffs.
Yeah.
You know, basically.
And that style of fuzz is, you'll hear, anybody from David Gilmore over, White Stripes and Black Keys and
sure. Real full range, and the guitar can just live. That's the thing, is that you can play in a trio with a sound like this, with just bass, and because your guitar is so full. And then playing single notes is like a big, That's why Gilmore could, know.
I think he would actually, and he would actually also use a little bit of drive afterwards.
Yeah, let's make a sound with like a little bit of. This would be cool. That's fun.
Nice.
Super fun, yeah.
And in general, I find, I think one of the epiphanies, at least for me, when it came to figuring out how to use fuzz, is actually not using it. They work with clean amps, but to me, most fuzzes into clean amps, depending on which fuzz it is again, have more of like a weird, uncontrollable kind of thing to them.
Yeah.
That again kind of reminds me more of like, how, Jack White or somebody would use fuzz, where it's this kind of weird Velcro kind of thing, which sounds great. It's just, I don't know quite how to handle it. Whereas as soon as you take a fuzz and you put send it into an overdrive, and it doesn't have to be very, very driven.
Yeah.
It just kind of tightens things up in a nice way.
And it kind of makes it sound I don't mean this term in a bad way, but it homogenizes the sound a bit more, because the overdrive, the ampish overdrive, kind of tends to smooth things out and take over the sound a little bit.
Yeah.
And then the fuzz is like a layer on top.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, a little less like of a sonic signature of its own, right? And it becomes a blended sound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we hear the difference again with the honeypot without it.
Yeah, it's smoothing out the edges and kind of compressing and doing its own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's really fun. This is kind of one of the more fun. I mean, they're all fun, but I'm enjoying this a lot. Like just kind of messing around.
Cool. Can we try something real quick? Do exactly the same thing, just swap the two fuzzes.
Oh, yeah.
Eric Johnson-y kind of thing compared to...
Oh, I guess it kind of is, isn't it? It's almost, and I'm not playing anything that sounds like that, but it's almost compressing the front end, and then it blooms if you let the note ring. Yeah, it's got a little bit of that quality, It's pretty sloppy, but it's fun.
Oh, it's cool.
Fun to play with. Yeah. This is really fun. I mean, this is kind of the thing. Is like, it takes a little bit of effort to hook up all this stuff and try all these sounds. But it's like this is, maybe we get too lazy these days as guitar players.
Yeah.
Put our pedal board together, go, there it is.
There it is. But it is a lot of fun. The only problem is that you tend to find a lot of fun sounds, and then you go like, oh, you got to pick some because this might be a little bit too much for
too many drives. Yeah. But then again, you've always got the option. Of turning them all on.
Wow! And on that note...
Yeah, I think am I fired?
No, you're hired.
The people that are working in the office are going to kill us.
Jesus.
Yeah, oh God. I don't know. Once again, I'm eternally 12 years old.
Yeah, so I like that. That was the best way to end this video. Thanks.
Hope you enjoyed it.